Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right? The meditation apps, the yoga, all the wellness stuff, but you're still just completely wiped out? Yeah, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to get into why those quick fixes often don't work and how you can shift your whole approach by becoming the architect of your own life.
Okay, let's start with this image, because it's really powerful, isn't it? This perfectly captures what some experts call the burnout paradox. See, we're trying to find our zen, our inner calm, while the entire structure of our life is basically on fire all around us. We're trying to treat the smoke inhalation while completely ignoring the blaze.
So that really begs the question, right? Why isn't that 10-minute mindfulness exercise actually cutting it anymore? Well, the core idea we're exploring here is that the problem isn't with your relaxation techniques, not at all. The problem is the flawed blueprint of our daily lives that's creating all the stress in the first place. We're just applying band-aids to deep structural wounds. To really fix this, we have to start thinking like an architect. Before you can rebuild a house, you have to understand what's wrong with the foundation, with the current structure. And it turns out, there are three major design flaws that seem to be the source of most of our chronic stress. First up, structural overload. This is that relentless, crushing feeling of being way overcommitted. Your schedule is packed to the gills, your personal boundaries are flimsy, or maybe totally non-existent. And when you live like this, your nervous system gets stuck in a permanent fight-or-flight mode. It's like a fire alarm is just blaring 24/7. The second one is chronic cognitive load. I find this one fascinating. It's all about these open loops. What are those? They're all the unfinished tasks, the worries, the mental to-do lists that we're constantly juggling inside our heads. All that internal clutter, it keeps our brain in this state of constant low-level threat detection. And it is absolutely exhausting. And the third design flaw? Something called supernormal stimuli. Just think about the infinite scroll on social media, or the constant dings of notifications. These digital inputs are literally designed to be addictive. They keep our brains jacked up in a state of hyper-arousal, which makes it almost biologically impossible for our nervous system to ever shift into its natural, calming, rest and digest state.
All right, so if those are the problems, what on earth is the solution? This is where we get to the absolute heart of this whole idea. We have to stop just reacting to stress after it hits. We have to start proactively redesigning the very systems of our lives that are creating it.
And this slide just lays it out so clearly. On the one hand, you've got reactive relaxation. It's all about treating the symptoms, using temporary band-aids, and, well, it just keeps you stuck in that endless cycle of burning out and then trying to patch yourself up. But on the other hand, you have proactive redesign. This is about going after the root causes, making permanent structural changes, and building a life that, from the ground up, is just fundamentally less stressful. So, where do we even begin a project that big? The starting point, the foundational principle for all of this work, actually comes from a powerful, ancient philosophy.
It's called the dichotomy of control, and it's simpler than it sounds. It just asks you to be absolutely ruthless about separating what you can control from what you can't. Look, you can't control the weather, external events, or what other people do, but you can control your responses, your boundaries, and the design of your life. This mindset is what lets us stop wasting energy on pointless suffering and instead focus all that power on real, actionable change.
Okay, so with that mindset as our foundation, it's time to open up the architect's toolkit. These are the practical, hands-on strategies you can start using right now to begin rebuilding your life piece by piece.
These tools really fall into three main buckets. First, we've got to lay our physiological foundations. That's our body. Then we use specific cognitive tools to manage our minds. And finally, we get smart about environmental design to shape the world around us for the better.
Any architect will tell you, a structure is only as strong as its foundation. And for our lives, that means getting the basics right. We're talking 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep, about 150 minutes of exercise a week, and fueling our bodies with real whole foods. Things like too much caffeine or sugar, they're like cracks in that very foundation, leading to anxiety. And hey, here's a super simple, high-impact tool that literally anyone can use. Research shows that just 20 minutes spent in a park or some green space, sometimes called forest bathing, can measurably lower your body's levels of cortisol, the big stress hormone. That's a huge return on investment for your nervous system. All right, let's talk cognitive tools. To tackle that chronic cognitive load we mentioned, the key is to externalize everything. Get all those worries, those to-dos out of your head and onto paper, or into an app, a trusted system. Then you time block. You assign specific, non-negotiable slots for your tasks. And finally, you commit to single tasking. Seriously, multitasking is a myth. It doesn't work, and it just spikes your stress.
Now, for environmental design, this is all about consciously shaping your surroundings, especially your digital world. And just look at the difference here. The default settings on our devices are designed for maximum distraction and hyper-arousal. But the architect's settings, they're designed for intention. Switching your phone to grayscale makes it way less addictive. Turning off notifications puts you back in control. And scheduling a weekly digital Sabbath lets your brain actually truly reset.
I want you to just sit with this for a second. This reframe is so important. In our culture that's all about the hustle, we're taught to see rest as weakness, as laziness. But it's not. Stress only becomes truly toxic when we strip away the recovery cycle. Recovery is not optional. It is essential. Biological maintenance for a high-performing system. That's you.
So how do we actually build recovery in? A well-designed life has it built in at every level. On the daily, it's small things like getting some morning sunlight or a quick walk. Weekly, it could be a half day completely offline, and quarterly, maybe a longer 2 to 3 day reset to totally disconnect and take a step back to evaluate your life's design. All of these tools, all these mindset shifts, they are all building towards one incredible ultimate goal, creating an architecture of peace. We're moving towards designing a life that feels so good, so aligned, that you don't feel that constant nagging need to escape from it.
And this right here, this is the final vision. It's not about cramming more calming activities into an already overstuffed schedule. It's about systematically redesigning, removing the friction and the overload so that your day-to-day existence actually becomes a source of energy, not a source of dread.
And finally, the most resilient life architectures, the ones that can withstand any storm, are supported by 3 really strong pillars. First is mastery, that feeling of competence and skill you get from improving at something that matters to you. Second is community, those deep, meaningful social connections that you can truly lean on. And third, meaningful work, making sure your daily efforts are aligned with a purpose you believe in. These are the ultimate long-term buffers against burnout.
So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. That feeling of stress, that pressure that builds up, is it just pointless suffering that you have to endure? Or could it actually be a valuable signal? A flashing light on your dashboard, telling you exactly where your life's blueprint needs a redesign. The choice and the power to rebuild is yours.